Thanks for joining us. I'm Kim Christensen.
I'm Alexandra Lewis. More than a year after a road rage shooting ended the lives of 2 men on I-25, tonight the Denver DA's office will drop the final charge against the shooter, saying there's a clear argument for self-defense here.
9 News reporter Rachel Krause is in Denver. And Rachel, this is something advocates have waited months for.
Yeah, Stefan Long was initially charged with 2 counts of murder following this road rage incident. The DA's office dropped the first murder charge last fall. Tonight, Long is once again a free man after they announced they'd be dropping the second murder charge against him. Now, this all started last June of last year. Investigators say Blake and Damon Lucas cut off Long on I-25 near 6th Avenue. And when he pulled over, the men attacked him. Long told 9 News previously that he was scared for his life and couldn't get away. So he shot the men and drove off. Throughout the investigation, he's claimed self-defense. Tonight, Long and his family are breathing a big sigh of relief. The Denver Justice Project has been working with his family. They say this represents the justice he deserved from the beginning. They sent us a statement on behalf of the family saying, quote, "Unfortunately, the delayed injustice he has endured throughout his criminal proceedings has brought to light significant systemic inadequacies and racial disparities in the application of self-defense laws, particularly when Black men are forced to defend themselves against white aggressors. It is our hope that this dismissal not only rectifies the wrongs done to Stefan, but also serves as a crucial step forward in addressing these broader issues." They hope this case will set a precedent in the legal system, pushing for fairer and more equitable treatment for all. As for the Lucas family, this news is tough. I spoke with the brother's uncle over the phone tonight. He tells me they're heartbroken over the DA's decision. DA Beth McCann's office sent us a statement that reads in part, "I have concluded that we could not prove Mr. Long's guilt to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence establishes a strong and valid self-defense claim." Now, we're expecting to hear from Long's family and Long himself tomorrow afternoon following the DA's decision to drop the case against him. We'll be there to hear what they have to say. Reporting live in Denver, Rachel Krause, 9 News.
The metro area saw some scattered showers, a few good downpours here and there, but this is what they saw in Alamosa. Cynthia Wheat sent us this video of what appears to be a large wall cloud and one that sometimes produces a tornado or Kathy, a funnel, something.
Yes, it was such an active afternoon. You guys, look at all the moisture pouring into Colorado from the southwest. And we're still dealing with severe storms in northeastern Colorado tonight. All of this moisture has brought heavy rain to the high country, the threat of flash flooding, but it's also going to bring cooler temperatures tomorrow. We're down into the mid-70s after a high of 96 today, and scattered showers will continue late into the night. The wind is picking up out of the west along the Front Range foothills at about 10 to 15 miles per hour. And we're going to track the potential for severe weather until about 3 o'clock in the morning. Flash flood threat for the burn scar is something we'll be talking about tomorrow. Here's where the severe storms are tracking now. East of Sterling toward Burlington and North Platte. A lot of wind, rain, and lightning as those storms track into Nebraska. And flash flooding concerns. The second flash flood warning for Carbondale and Cattle Creek in the Garfield and Pitkin Canyon areas. And so in that Pitkin County area, 2 to 4 inches of rain. The rain's moved out of Denver, but will be returning tomorrow. The timing and impact of that weather change and what that means for your Thursday coming up.
For the 6th time in 5 years, Aurora will have a new police chief. Todd Chamberlain is a former commander with the Los Angeles Police Department and lastly, the chief of police for the Los Angeles Unified School District. Chamberlain is set to take the reins of the embattled police department next month. Aurora has not had a permanent police chief since 2022. That's when city officials fired Vanessa Wilson, a few months after a consent decree was put into place due to racial profiling.
We have to talk about holding officers accountable.
Wilson believes her firing was retaliation for her reform efforts. She sued the department, there was a defamation scandal, it was a lot, but let's move on. After Wilson's firing,
thank you, Mr. Manager.
Dan Oates, former Aurora police chief of 9 years, took his old job back, but only for a few months.
Any departure of any police chief under less than ideal circumstances creates a trauma within the organization.
It's exciting to be here
in Aurora.
Art Acevedo took over for Oates later the same year.
Everybody wants the department to be the best it can be.
You could say it wasn't the right fit. He left the department 13 months later, this past January, saying he wanted to spend more time with family.
I could not be prouder as the chief in this department with the help of our deputy chief, Chief Heather Morris.
Enter current interim chief Heather Morris.
If I had the privilege of being the chief of police without the interim title, it would be a privilege.
That sentiment was fleeting as she announced just 7 months later she wasn't interested in the role on a permanent basis after all. She did not give a reason. So let's touch on that consent decree currently in place in Aurora. The department essentially is mandated by the state to make some major changes, specifically on how it treats people of color and its use of force. In a post-Elijah McClain Aurora, Chamberlain will have some big shoes to fill, leading the agency in need of a serious overhaul on how it's viewed by community and how it treats its community. It's big shoes to fill, and big shoes no one has really seemed that interested in filling for too long. Perhaps Chamberlain will be different. Todd Chamberlain needs to be confirmed by City Council. A vote for that is scheduled on Monday, and if he gets the green light then, he will be sworn in on September 9th.
4 people now face charges connected to a jewelry store robbery in Northwest Denver. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced the indictment today against 4 Venezuelan nationals, ages who range from 18 to 23. They're accused of robbing Joyeria Ruby jewelry store on West 38th Avenue in June. Investigators say they pointed weapons at workers, striking several of them before taking gold and jewelry. They were later found in Texas. A senior living center in Inglewood has been without clean water for nearly 2 months with no end in sight. 9 News reporter Rhea Jha is joining us. And Rhea, you spoke with families of those living in the facility.
Yeah, we're talking about Brookdale Meridian Senior Living. Families got an email on August 8th saying there were excess levels of nitrate in the facility's water. That was 5 times the normal amount. In that initial email, they said the water was unsafe to drink or shower in. In a statement, Brookdale told us that the nitrate was identified during a routine maintenance work, but they haven't answered questions about how long nitrate has been in the water and when the water will be turned back on. A follow-up email from Brookdale last week said residents can safely shower as long as they don't swallow the water. We spoke with Melissa Royal, whose 81-year-old mother lives in the facility. Now she's looking at other options.
I don't know what else to do for my mom other than to try to reach out and help this, because it's not just her. That's a very vulnerable population that needs an advocate.
Everyone we spoke with today believes the local staff is doing their best. And for context, Brookdale Senior Living is the largest operator of senior housing in the country, with hundreds of locations nationwide. So people think this issue with the water is systemic, coming from the top down. Rhea Jha, 9 News.
Speaking of which, come on out, Scarlets. Yeah! Yeah!
It wasn't just one former student, but an entire football team on stage tonight at the DNC to introduce the man they know as Coach Walz. The Minnesota governor and Democratic nominee for VP closed out night 3.
Kyle Clark is in Chicago for us tonight. And Kyle, Minnesota knows Walz certainly, but this really was like his introduction to the rest of the nation.
Absolutely, Alex. You can really see how Tim Walz went from being a relatively low-profile figure within the Democratic Party to one of its brightest stars in just a matter of weeks. And a lot of it is that he refuses to cede ground that is currently claimed by Republicans on family, on freedom, on patriotism, even on gun rights. But the moment that people will be talking about from tonight is when Walz was discussing how some Republicans want to limit access to certain infertility treatments. He talked about his family's own struggles with having a child. And then the crowd saw as the Walz family was overcome with emotion.
And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you.
That reaction from Gus Walls, who is neurodivergent, was shown on the in-arena monitors here. It was a rare crowd shot seen by the crowd during a high-profile speech at the DNC. And when the crowd saw what all of you watching at home saw, the place erupted with cheers. So Governor Walz has a progressive record from his time in Minnesota, but he also leans into his rural roots, his decades of National Guard service, and his familiarity with gun culture, reframing Republican arguments about guns and freedom.
Your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall. Look, I know guns. I'm a veteran. I'm a hunter. And I was a better shot than most Republicans in Congress, and I got the trophies to prove it. But I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe.
The only Coloradan that we knew would speak this week was Governor Jared Polis, who appeared early this evening.
And let's talk about Project 2025.
Each night, Democrats have had a speaker use that enormous prop copy of Project 2025. That's the ultra-conservative blueprint for remaking the federal government. Polis criticized portions of that document that would limit abortion access and that would define families as one woman and one man. Democrats are really trying to tie Trump to that blueprint created by Trump advisors and allies for the Heritage Foundation. I asked Polis about that strategy.
Democrats are obviously going hard on this. Is there danger in it, though, given that it's not exactly Donald Trump's platform? It was prepared for him by his allies, but he disagrees with parts of it. So is there danger in leaning into that too hard?
Well, look, it's one of the many things we're talking about here. But yes, each night we have a theme. We're actually showing the document. It's, 700-800 pages. It's a detailed plan about really weaponizing the executive branch of government. This is something that's very close to J.D. Vance. Yes, Donald Trump's allies have prepared it. It sort of shows the importance of the presidency and what a president can do, and why we should all pay attention.
Tim Walz, the main attraction tonight, also referenced Project 2025 in his remarks, telling the crowd to take it from an old high school football coach. If somebody puts together a playbook, they're going to use it. Kim and Alex.
All right. Thank you, Kyle.